tawbah. The inner tawbah is my personal likes and my dislikes. Do you remember the story of Ibrahim? When he invited guests at his house, and they stretched their hands to take the food, and as they stretched their hands for the food, they uttered the name of their idols. Ibrahim, being offended at this, chased them away. Allah looked at Ibrahim and reprimanded him, and he said, Ibrahim, for the last 70 years they have been uttering the names of their gods, and yet I have tolerated them and I have fed them. How dare you chase them away? Go and bring them back and feed them. This is the inner level of tawbah. There are many things that we can't accept. We just can't accept. This is a self-imposed impediment. We need to break them. Now let's look at one or two examples. And they are beautiful examples. When Yazid saw those dreams of the pit of hell and punishment that awaited him, he came running to Imam Zain al-Abidin and he stated, is there any forgiveness for me? The Imam stated, there is no forgiveness for the crime that you have committed. It is with Allah, not with me. He stated, yet, is there any forgiveness? Now imagine what Yazid had done. Imagine the crime that Yazid had committed. He said, is there any way for my forgiveness? The Imam said, yes. If you pray Salatul Ghufayla, Allah may forgive you. When Zainab heard this, she said, O Sayyidu Sajjad, how did you impart the knowledge of Salatul Ghufayla to the killer of my brother? He responded, he said, O aunt, he has not asked the son of Imam Hussein. He has asked the Imam of his time. And it is my duty to convey the truth no matter who asks me. Look at that level of inner liberation. That level of inner tawbah. So tawbah is that constant introspection within our limitations. There are many things that we can accept, we can't accept. Immediately as you are listening to this information, many minds must be thinking that this sounds absurd, but give it a thought. You know, when the Prophet was speaking to the people, they said he is a madman. The Quran responds to them, and it states to them that, look, go away, stand alone or in pairs and think about what he is saying. You will find that there is no madness there. What it's indicating at is this, that at times when we are in gatherings, the culture of the gathering prevails and it imposes limitations upon our minds. When one person cries out, he is a madman, the rest of them in mob mentality will cry out, he's a madman. But if a person were to sit alone and say, well, let's see what he's been saying, does it have any worth? It is at that point that the truth becomes revealed, and no one can be harmed by the truth. Now, till what level does Allah, the Tawwab, accept Tawbah? The Prophet was asked, till what level can Allah forgive us? The Prophet said, 1 year before your deaths, if you do Tawbah, Allah will accept. He said, no, a day before your death. Then he said, no, when the angel stands in front of you. Then he said, no, when the angel penetrates within your limbs and begins to extract your soul, Allah can forgive you. Then he said, by God, no, when it reaches here and you're about to leave this world for once and for all, Allah will forgive you even at that point. Even at that point, if someone decides to say to Allah that now I've acknowledged myself and I will no longer sin, then Allah forgives and wipes everything off, and it becomes a clean slate once again. Now there's one thing that we need to understand. Sometimes we are encouraged to do Tawbah in such frequency and with such a mindset that we become embarrassed of our own selves. There are certain sins that we commit that we are extremely embarrassed of, aren't there? There are sins that we can't face to the extent that we lose our confidence. We can't go to Allah anymore. It becomes a veil. Here, the acknowledgement of that sin has become a barrier. If a person, let's give a simple example. If an instructor has a student and the student has failed their exams, and they fail the second time, and they fail the third time, after failing the third time, if the student is carrying the memories of the failure, and if that memory is preventing the student from trying again, then that memory of the failure is defeating the student at present, is it or is it not? What will the instructor say? Forget it and go on. Choose a different method, choose a different path. Same is the story with us. We have sinned, we have failed, we have done wrong, that we lose confidence from within. And we say, well, I am no good, I can't do this, don't we? At times I've committed such crimes that I can't go to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This in itself is a self-imposed pit of hell. And Allah is saying, forget it, come back to me. At that point, Mahmud Shabistri says that it is haram to remember a sin. It is haram to do tawbah after that, because tawbah has become counterproductive. When tawbah means to recall particular sins, and those sins are preventing us from flowing forth, then at that point tawbah in itself becomes the greatest crime. Here, what they suggest we do is, with full confidence, say to Allah, I presume myself forgiven, and then approach Allah afresh and start the journey once again. But there are two different, there is a distinction that the Sharia, that the spiritual language make for us. Atubu ilayk and tub alayya. Atubu ilayk means I turn to you, O Allah, by removing obstacles. But at times, the journey becomes so arduous, trying to break the intellectual boundaries, trying to break the inner attitudes, that in defeat, we cry out to Allah and we say, Tub alayya. I am no longer capable of turning to you. I beseech you to turn to me, because you are more than capable of reaching me, even if I can't reach you. The bottom line here is that there is a constant process of introspection, of reviewing what we are at the intellectual level and at the level of our emotions and attitudes. At the intellectual level, we need to break every intellectual boundary that stifles us. At the level of attitude, what we need to do is become godly. What do we mean by that in 2 minutes? Look at Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He does not discriminate. There is no prejudice with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. There is nothing but care, love, tolerance and acceptance. If I can't tolerate the shortcomings of another, it does not mean that there is wrong there. It means there is wrong here. If I hate somebody, the hatred is only damaging me and consuming me from within. Look at the godliness of Allah. This is what inner tawbah means. Remember that story of Moses, when a person met him as Moses was making his way to the mount in order to engage with Allah. He said, tell your Allah that if He has created me, then I don't want His air nor His sustenance. When Moses approached the mountain, Allah said, Moses, what did He say? When Moses conveyed the message, Allah responded to Moses and He said, oh Moses, when you go back to Him, say, Allah says salam to you. Once you have given Him my salam, then tell Him that you, despite being a slave of mine, you can turn away from slavery and obedience. I, being a Lord of yours,